Hi everyone, welcome to the first interview that I will be having on my YouTube channel. I want to introduce you to Sara Straw, who is a QHHT practitioner. In fact, she's my QHHT practitioner. And it's a fascinating process developed by Dolores Cannon. But I'll let Sara give her understanding. She's the trained professional in this. So welcome, Sara.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. I'm really honored to be here today and to talk to you and your audience about QHHT.
So how did you, actually, before we get into the QHHT, how did you what is your spiritual journey thus far? What led you to going into this sort of an unusual therapy, type of therapy?
Absolutely. I will give you some background about myself. So, I grew up in Montana in the capital city, very conservative and a very black and white narrative as far as what beliefs may be, if what your religion may be, you're Christian or you're not, for instance. And this never really resonated with me growing up. But when you only have two choices, and that's like light or dark, of course, I was going to choose the light. So I attended church growing up, and I went to youth group on my own, even though that wasn't something my family required of me. And it was nice as far as meeting people socially and everything, but it just never resonated with my soul and with my truth. And so as I grew up and got a little older, I ended up moving to Portland, Oregon when I was 18 with a good friend of mine. And there I was exposed to a lot more than I ever realized existed in my little Montana reality.
Mm.
And I, one night, I just kind of had something very random happen to me. It wasn't something I knew could happen to anybody. I had never heard of anything like this happening to anyone. It wasn't intentional. But we would go to the club and we'd go dancing. And so we were at the nightclub in the city and we'd been dancing and we danced until like 4 in the morning. And we would go, we would rave, and it was in the late 90s. So techno was really hitting the scene, and that was really big. And so we had kind of danced all night, me and my girlfriend, and we went home to where we were staying. And I lay down to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, I projected astrally out of my physical being. And I could see myself in my mind's eye as this beautiful rainbow pyramid body, like from like the sacral or the solar plexus down.
Mm-hmm.
It was like my human form, from there up, but from the solar plexus down, just this elongated triangular pyramid of light. And I shot up into the multiverse, and I connected with this energy that was it was the most amazing presence. And it was just the spiraling mass of just purples, blues, kind of every color, but just magical. And it spoke to me, telepathically, just vibrationally, and explained to me my place in the universe, and that I was protected, that I was a part of everything. I understood that we are all one, that everything was interwoven. And I could see that and I could feel that. And it was the most amazing activation. I was told so much more than I could even comprehend at that time.
Mm.
It was really amazing. So that kind of started my, that was my awakening, and that started me on just a path of knowing that this universe was a place that I did belong. Because prior to that, I never felt
Mm,
quite right.
mm,
Um, I was very fearful prior to that. I was afraid of the dark. I was so afraid of aliens. I was afraid of everything. And when this experience occurred, I was stopped. I was no longer afraid of anything. I was
mm.
not afraid of death. Um, it was amazing. So, um, do you have any questions?
Well, how old were you then, did you say?
I was 18, 19, really
Right,
young. Yeah.
right. Okay, so
And
how did this experience make you make different choices in your life?
oh, 100%. Knowing that I was protected, safe, that I was eternal, that I had nothing to be afraid of, allowed me to open my world opened up, and I was more open to new experiences. I wanted to meet people. It just completely changed me. I
Mm,
wish in a way that everybody could have an experience like this, because um, without having had this experience, I can't even imagine who I would be today, um, or the way I would understand the universe. It would be so much different. Um, so I'm very grateful. I believe that it was my galactic family. Um, they knew that I needed to know this in order to get through the rest of my life successfully. You know, there would be some dark times, and having this knowing inside of me would allow me to always be on top of the things that I was going to experience, at
So
least in
you
some way.
so you've you came to QHHT sort of in your recently, haven't you, in the last
Mhm.
couple of years? What did you do spiritually? What was your spiritual path then between that awakening and coming to QHHT?
So I kind of spiritually, I kind of fell off. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had a son at the age of 22, and I moved back to Montana, and I kind of just lived a 3D life. I was always into, fascinated with aliens and astrology, but that wasn't my focus for existence. My focus for existence was working, making money, and then raising my son. And then when he went to bed, it became drinking and partying. You know, and I kind of fell off the wayside for, you know, a couple decades, just living this 3D life and raising my son. And a few years ago, I somehow just became, it was like a switch flipped one day, and I just became reactivated. I actually went down a little bit of a dark night of a soul in 2016. I was managing a couple of bars, and that was the kind of work that I did. And I was drinking every day, and I got in a car accident, and my life fell apart, and I lost my job all in the same day, and I totaled my vehicle, and I didn't hurt anybody else, but I destroyed my own life. What I thought was just the worst day of my life turned out to be the absolute best day of my life,
Mm-hmm.
because I have since learned that my guides and higher self purposely caused this accident to force me off of this path that I was going down and get me on the right path. So I started a gardening business, and I just worked with nature for a few years. And I stopped the bar business, and my ego was really, really deflated at that point. I realized I had been living so ego driven, and for all of the wrong, you know, motivations.
Mm-hmm.
So I took those few years and just and I just kind of went inside, and absolutely everything about my life completely changed, and I started to change. And one day, um, after I had been activated and I had started meditating, um, somehow a Dolores Cannon video notification came on my phone. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure how or why, because I didn't know who she was at that point. But as soon as I watched a little bit, I had become so activated from watching Dolores's videos, and my complete soul just ignited with knowing that this was for me. This was my path. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got started with QHHT.
Mm. Yeah, the Dolores Cannon videos or the snippets of the videos are always coming up on Facebook, and people saying, have a look at this, have a look at this. And she was really ahead of her time. But look, I would love for you to give your explanation of QHHT now.
So, gosh, QHHT is so many things. Um,
It stands for Quantum
okay,
Healing Hypnosis Technique, yeah?
exactly.
Mm.
And I practice QHHT, and I also practice what is called BQH, or Beyond Quantum Healing, which is a spin-off or a modified version of Dolores's original QHHT version. And quantum healing hypnosis, Dolores's version, you use one script. It is never to be done online. It's in person. You never deviate from the script. It's very structured. And as evolution of spirituality in the times, especially COVID in particular, not being able to see people face to face, a lot of people that practice just QHHT kind of became interested in Beyond Quantum Healing because it can be practiced online, and you can be free to add whatever modalities you may also be a practitioner of. You can include those in your sessions if you would like to as well. So some people read tarot, some people will do Reiki, in addition to whatever kind of healing with the Beyond Quantum Healing.
Mm.
So the lady that invented Beyond Quantum Healing worked very closely with Dolores for many years until Dolores passed away. And she she's a really amazing lady herself. Her name is Candace Krog Goldman, and it's becoming more well known at this point, but definitely not as known as QHHT.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have seen a couple of practitioners comment that Dolores is showing up in some people's sessions now. So she hasn't she's still sort of keeping an eye over everything from the ether or from wherever she is at the moment. Have you had any interaction with her since then?
I have not had Dolores show up in one of my sessions. I've been waiting for the day that happens. I can't even imagine how excited I would be. She's definitely a busy lady, and I can kind of understand why she is no longer in the physical plane.
Mm,
She can do so much more work from the
mm.
other side, and is. And so, yeah, I definitely love and appreciate her for what she's done to help this
Yes.
whole movement.
Yeah, it's interesting that she had the concept to speak to deeper and deeper levels, like to go back in the past, because that's how she started, wasn't she? She was a regression therapist,
Her
wasn't she?
husband actually was. And he was a hypnotist, and he was in the military, and she would transcribe his sessions. And at one point or another, I've read the book and I forget exactly how it goes, but she ended up taking over his work. And she he was originally the one that learned that you could travel into these past lives, and kind of discovered all of this. And you're so right. She was so far advanced for her
Mm,
time.
mm.
Absolutely.
And she looks quite conservative, you know, just how she dresses and looks. So she's not a hippie. She wasn't sort of, I don't know, maybe she was when she was younger, but she looks quite conservative. So she has these really amazing far out concepts that,
Absolutely.
you know, so you can definitely never judge a book by its cover.
It's so true. She just looks like everybody's grandmother that you want to
Yeah.
hug.
Yes, that's right. But I remember reading how she sort of developed the QHHT, that she would be in one country talking with a client and taking a client through a process. And at a certain point, she connected with this deeper aspect of this being, of her subject, who she would talk with and get information from. And at the end of the session, she would close it down, and then she would maybe travel back to America. And then she would take another person through a session, and that same being would come through at a certain point, and it would continue on from that session in England.
Mhm.
And that's how she knew that there was some
Great.
point or some energetic focus that really went beyond who we
Yeah,
are
this
as
greater
people and
collective
personality.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I wonder how she first felt about that. Must have been mind blowing to have the conversation continue a continent away.
Oh,
It'd be interesting.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely amazing. Well, and I feel that Dolores she had something about her energy that allowed her almost to tap into, maybe it was just the thousands and thousands of sessions
Mm.
that she has done, but she could tap into a level that not just any practitioner can, get you to that certain level. Not just any practitioner, that I've come across can find this higher self level that is connected. Well, and not all higher selves have that level of connection um, either. That can vary from person to person, definitely.
Right, right. Well, in my sessions, the couple that I've had, they've been so interesting and so fascinating. And you know that I'm a light language channel, and light language comes up all the time through my sessions with you. And the deeper aspects that you help me access through that process um, will speak in English, but they then will also speak in light language. And you've noticed that the light language that will come through will be a reprogramming portion of light language, or a release part of that. So
Absolutely.
it isn't just knowledge, it is actually, there's sort of like in my QHHT sessions with you, or my processes with you, they're working in conjunction with you. These beings that channel through me, they're sometimes family members. Do you remember that some of them were my one was my father from another dimension, and I believe it was Alpha Centauri. It's hard to remember at this point. There's just all
I
of
think you're
these
right.
things float around in your head from these experiences. But so he would speak in English, and he said he was my father from another reality, from a star far, far away. And then he would speak in light language to help me with the questions that I had, or the blocks that I had.
Yeah.
So it was very fascinating. And so, you know, when I listen back to them, I just go, oh my God, it's so mind blowing. I think at one point, I think I said that was the oversoul of the galaxy that was speaking through me.
Mm.
Oya wamayendi. Izikuketi ionda yote yoyenaya. Hayeto yomboye ni yesuye. Ayotokoye kukumboye ayomoye nioya. So yes, they've been so amazing. And even when I first heard them back again, I was thinking, really? But of course, it's just the next level of awareness that there is so much more to reality than we've been taught or shown. So even in and of itself, that's expansion, that's growth, to hear this. And then the next step is that you start releasing and healing and changing and reprogramming through these processes.
Absolutely. And both the light language, it unblocks, it moves energy that's been stuck in your energy body, in your physical body. And you do the same thing with QHHT. You're getting, these energies that have been stuck, whether it be something from a previous life or a strong emotion you felt in this life. You're getting these energies to stop being, to move out, to flow. And so they are very similar in that way, actually.
Mm,
And yeah,
yes, it's just another one in our toolkit, another process
absolutely.
in our toolkit. So, where do you want to take? How do you see your practice evolving? Do you think you will stay with the BQHT? Do you think you will?
QH.
Do you think you would actually now develop it in your own way, or what do you think is next for you?
I have started to do that. So a part of me wanted to take the level 2 QHHT because there's 3 levels to it. But because the sessions need to be done in person, I do like 95% of my sessions online
Mm,
these days. And
mm,
so, until that maybe changes, I will just continue with the BQH. So, the BQH, what's really exciting is that you do all of the same things. You accomplish the same um, goals that you do with QHHT. Maybe that's experiencing a past life, or you need some type of energetic clearing or activation. It could include memory recall. Um, and one of the really exciting things that I've started making sure that I provide for my clients in a session is we're able to, beyond experience your past lives and all the things we just talked about, we're able to scan your energy body, make sure there's absolutely no dark spots, tears, cords, hooks. So we repair the energy body. Obviously, we go through and we find out what any kind of physical issues we may be suffering from, what they're from, if they can be cleared and healed, why we're experiencing those. Um, and we also go through and clear the emotional body. Um, and each layer has its own separate, can have its own separate issues. And so it's important to go through each of the bodies. Um, we go through the emotional body with a scan and a healing, and then the auric field as well. And when you're in the quantum field, you can see these bodies of yourself, and you can heal anything that is presented or that you're able to find. And so I think that's really exciting. And that's something that I have kind of modified my sessions
mm,
to include.
mhm,
Um, because if there's anything you missed in the past life portion, as far as the healing, um, you're going to receive that healing on whatever level. And this is a kind of, we do this type of healing towards the end of the session when we contact the higher self, where you can receive all your answers to all your
mm,
questions.
mm.
Um, Usually the big one is, why am I incarnated here at this time? Like, what is my purpose? My soul's purpose.
And what's the most, is there an answer that really goes across the board for everybody, or do you get a really sort of specific answer with each person you work with?
The main answer is to help others. It's very, um, very normal. It's really standard across the board. It's in some way, shape, or form. Our mission here is to assist others in some different way, but it's very, very accurate for people to have
Mm,
the same um,
purpose.
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything, without giving anything away, what's the most interesting answer or session or portion of a session that you've experienced? Is there something that pops to mind?
You know, my sessions, when they're over, I have a really hard time remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, it's kind of all up here, and the vibration is so high in these sessions that once you come out and your vibration lowers, you have a hard time
Mm,
remembering.
mm,
Um, but just recently, okay, so I've had a few really impactful memories from these sessions. Recently, one that I thought was really interesting. I had a young man, he was only 19, and one of the things he wanted to find out about was why he couldn't wear pants. And it sounds really strange, but when he puts pants on, they irritate his legs so bad he can barely wear them. And he
right.
tried natural fibers and all these different types of pants, and he just couldn't stand it. So in his session, he went to a past life, and he was ultimately burned alive in a building. It caught fire when he was asleep, and he was burned. That trauma was carrying over into this life, and that is why he could not wear pants. It was from the legs burning in that fire. So during this session, once he was able to see and understand this, we were allowed to release the energy,
Mm.
and he's no longer suffering from not being able to wear pants. On another level, I had a gal who she was in her mid 20s, and really kind of never followed through with things. She would kind of like let her plants die. Um, she just didn't complete. So I knew her parents, and her parents are the ones that said she should have a session. She just didn't have a lot of zest for life. Um, so we had the session, and in the session, she learned that she had died young for the past few lives that she'd had. She died very young, and she learned from her higher self that in this life, she would live to be a very old age. So I ran into her mother and father a couple months later, and they both wanted sessions because they had seen such a change in
Mm,
her. She It was like she knew she was going to live, and so she started living.
mm,
She was like following through with projects. She was doing more. It was almost as if subconsciously she thought she wasn't going to be here long, or so she wasn't living life to her fullest. But once she got this validation that she would be here living a long life, she started living it. um so I think that was really amazing. That was one of my most amazing feedbacks.
yes, to see a whole lifestyle change, a whole
Absolutely.
perspective on life change.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
huge.
that's great. Okay, so we'll wrap up in a minute, but I just want to know how you're going and how you're coping with what's happening in the world at the moment.
So I think that the last year has been one of the best years of my life.
Mm,
And I'm sorry if that, I don't mean to offend anybody. And I know it
mm,
hasn't been for many people. But on a level of going inside and
mm,
having the time for ourselves, and taking the time and the space to understand more about the world we live in, and our place in it, I think it's been a pretty great time for me to evolving. And so I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
that's really wonderful to hear, Sarah.
And I have high hopes for humanity and for the earth and where we're heading. And I hope we can all keep our vibrations high
Mm,
and do whatever we can to continue to learn more about who we are and what makes us tick and how we can continue to evolve.
mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I will put your contact details under the description of the video when we post this on YouTube.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely wonderful talking with you today, and
You as well.
many, many blessings to you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me on to chat. And it's always so wonderful to visit.
You take care.
You too.